You found us.
Welcome to Emergency Protocol, a podcast for people who are stressy and depressy.
We are your hosts,
Denise
and Jackie Freed. That's my mama.
And that's my baby.
We are sharing our 12 steps reimagined for today's society.
And our bumpy, pothole-ridden spiritual paths.
And we're bringing you along for the ride.
This is us doing the actual work.
When the shit hits the fan, you know it's time for
Emergency Protocol. Hi.
Hello.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Hi.
So, we've done we're trying to up level our studio space because we're going to have some pictures
we're professionals.
done next week.
Yeah.
So I ordered this lovely emergency protocol framed thing. And in true emergency protocol.
Oh. Now the whole side. Yeah.
It's busted. It came busted.
There's a whole ass corner missing.
And, so we thought we'd share that and kind of maybe even keep it. I think maybe we're going to keep it because it's just.
You just did the thing with the microphone that we just.
I accidentally touched it.
No, I mean when you were reaching. All right, y'all.
I didn't hear it.
In an effort to professionalize, I've been making the case that we need to keep the audio consistent for the enjoyment of our listeners. And so when we do stuff like this, it affects the sound quality, or like when we're reaching and talking over here, it changes the sound.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so she have
gets
a lot
stressed.
of awareness.
This brings up her stressy.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it is not.
So there we go. We have some, differing opinions. If you would like consistent audio, raise your hand.
Leave a comment. Send us an email. Yeah. Send it to me because she already knows.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So here we are. It's the end of August. It's been a busy, crazy, what the heck kind of month.
It's basically Christmas.
Fuck, stop it. Now she's reverse stressing me out. I'm like, oh girl, no.
Yeah.
No. We haven't even started Halloween yet. We're a whole 2 months from Halloween. We are not at Christmas.
There's already Halloween candy in the stores.
It's 2 months away.
Yeah.
You're the one that's always talking Christmas. About capitalism.
Yeah.
They're fucking with you.
Yeah.
It's not true. It's 2 months away. You're going to be eating 2-month-old candy.
Ew, yeah.
It's probably already 3 months old before it even got here. So now you're eating 6-month-old candy.
Maybe. We don't even know.
It's probably, who knows it's got a long shelf life, I think. Anyway, candy corn, yes or no?
Hot take, yes.
Really?
I ride for candy corn.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you know why? Eat it as a whole piece, or do you bite off the sections?
Depends on the mood. I will say candy corn falls into the same category for me as, those like shortbread cookies that you used to get for like our soccer tournaments. It's just like a plain cookie and it's got that thick circle of frosting with the sprinkles on top.
Yes.
It's like plastic.
Yes.
Or like the coating that's on those Rice Krispies from Disneyland.
Yes.
That like plastic candy. Yes. I really like that.
Really?
I don't know why. I don't like, at this point, I don't even eat candy with like red Lake 40 or whatever. Like I try not to eat artificial dyes, but I do make the occasional exception. Candy corn falls in that. It's seasonal. Corn. You can't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you technically can get it year round, but I don't even go into
Yeah, it's not my thing.
It's gotta.
Like if there was a whole bowl, I might take one, but it's not one of those things where I'm like gonna have a couple.
Oh no, I mean you can't do like a handful. You can do like 5 because they're so sweet.
They're so sweet.
Anyway, If you also want to chime in
on the candy corn
debate.
Candy corn, should we keep the busted thing? I think it kind of speaks to us. Like the canvas is dented. It's kind of perfect, actually.
She was going to order another one, and I was like, this feels very on the nose for our whole project.
Feel very on the nose.
Yeah.
So we might just keep our little busted frame, because now it's really art. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so it's not Christmas and it's not Halloween. Just for you folks out there, it is August 30th when we're recording this.
September.
It is August. It says 8.
31st.
It says 8, not 9. So today, right now, here in our bodies, where our feet and our heads are, it is still August. It is... We're not there yet. So, that being said, August was challenging. It was a lot.
Yeah.
And we already talked about how much of a lot it was, but I feel like it's kind of behind us now.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff coming up, right? So it's like, yeah, there's stuff coming up. Mainly what's on my brain is the election.
Yeah.
So,
which is not tomorrow. It's in 3 months.
But, I just got invited to come write some postcards, which I'm going to do since I'm waiting for my 500 postcards to show up. I have my own little postcard writing party.
Yeah.
And the last time I wrote, I by myself in my room wrote something like 200 letters.
Yeah.
While binge watching The Handmaid's Tale. And that fired me up to write letters. I was like, you're not taking my job. You're not coming after me. I'm not wearing that fucking red dress. No, I mean, obviously I'm too old to wear the red dress. There's nothing to reproduce down there. But still, I think, no. Fuck no. And I think a lot of women, dear God, will step up for themselves this election. Yeah.
I mean, this is a gentle reminder to anybody listening. There's no way to find out who somebody voted for. All we know is that you did or you didn't vote.
Correct.
In the election. So do with that information what you will.
Right.
Get your butt to the polls. Right. Or if you can, actually, PSA, this is totally not political on one side or the other, but in general, best practice, check to make sure that you're still current in your voter rolls. There's been a lot of changes. A lot of people have either moved or maybe unknowingly been booted from their voter registration roll. So double check on that. If your state allows for mail-in voting, that's a great option, especially because it seems like COVID is surging again right now. And yeah, I think that feels good. I think there's also, when you mail in your vote, it gets run through this machine, gets counted. There's been a little bit of conversation around interference with the electronic machines, potentially. So if that's something you're wary of,
with a lot of things.
Yeah.
Voters getting purged from. It's just right now we need to be paying attention.
Yeah.
And so we're all going to pay attention.
So yeah, check your shit.
Yeah.
Make sure you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Whoever you're voting for. Yeah. And there's a lot of guides out there too, because it's not just the big seats. It's not just the presidency. It's not just Senate or House seats. There's also all kinds of positions down the ballot that are also super important. So yeah, check your shit.
Check your shit.
Check your election shit. Vote. It's important.
Yeah. It
affects us in lots of ways. There's usually guides out there that can break down what you're actually voting for. Sometimes the I guess vote is actually a vote against something. So the language can be a little bit tricky. Requires a good amount of literacy to parse things out.
And also check your literature that you're, check the source of the literature that you're getting your stuff from. So we just have to be vigilant and we have to be smart and we have to show up. This is the time.
Yep.
So we're showing up.
Cool. But yeah, the election is taking up a large portion of brain space for sure.
Election.
And it feels different than last time, because last time it was the pandemic and we could just sit at home because everybody was on, we were on like basically lockdown, right? I mean, we weren't on formal lockdown, but even once the restrictions were lifted, people still weren't going out unless necessary, right? So like I was home writing postcards too, because I was texting, I was phone banking. And now that I don't have as much time available for that, I have to like pick and choose.
Right. And the time available was like, I was doing it after work hours, but because we are open again, it's like, oh, Monday night and Wednesday night, I'm going to work out. And Tuesday night, we're meeting about podcast stuff. And Thursday night, I have book group and sometimes a meeting, right? And so it's kind of like, it's not, because our weeks are socialized. Yeah. There was something really nice about the calmness of the pandemic where there was no invitation you had to socially turn down. And then it took a while for people to say yes again. And now I feel like I'm in that space of where I do need to go back. I need to dial it back a little bit and go, I will need to turn it down. And I think we're seeing that in a lot of different ways, like people's travel. Like I'm reading a lot of articles I've read a lot of articles around different tourist spots that are basically like overrun and kind of just not great to be at for especially the local people who live there. So, I think we swung this pendulum, right? Like pretty far and that's kind of what it does. So now I'm going to try and find middle ground again and like say no to some things. And, it's hard because I am a person who fills every blank spot.
Yeah, the pendulum swung too far. I feel like we really had an opportunity that we squandered during the pandemic to choose how we want to live. And instead, we just went back to like what the status quo was before the pandemic, right? Except to maybe a worse degree.
I don't think that's true.
I do.
I think a lot of people did some soul searching and the changes are still happening from that pandemic. That kind of realization, because change.
I think people are still trying to hold on to it, but the broader systems are still trying to force things back to like the pre-pandemic life.
40 in the office.
Yeah. 40 hours. Yeah. And also like understanding that 40 out, when everybody was home, supposedly working a 40-hour work week from home, nobody actually works 40 hours in a row. Right? You might be physically present at your office for that amount of time, but are you actually working straight? No, that's not like feasible. Right? So
there is something though that's, and we've talked about this before. There is something really lovely about going into the office and seeing people you care about and having that laughter and making the jokes and kind of being able to come up with a solution right away, just sitting down and like hashing it out for 5 minutes instead of email, text, Slack, whatever communication you're going to do. It's just like, I can sit with you, I can bring this up and we can just solve it and be done with it. And that to me is more efficient and more humane to me. Like I like the connection to people, I think.
That's assuming you like the people in your office, though.
Assuming you like the people in your office.
Like I don't think you realize how unique your situation is. Like you really love and care for your coworkers.
I did build my situation. Actually, that's not true. I don't have any choice in who gets hired and placed in my office. Yeah. But once they're placed there, I do my best to make them feel like they're part of the family. And so...
But that's very unique for someone in a managerial position.
It shouldn't be unique. That should be mandatory. That should be what it is.
No, it's a lot of like, we sent in a secret evaluator and we got low markings, so.
That's bullshit. Who wants to work there? Don't go work there. Come work with me.
There you go.
Here first. Yeah.
So I feel like, we squandered this opportunity to reshape a world that I quite literally actually want to live in. So and now we're back in this kind of like hellscape.
But then I think what you need, and it sounds flippant when I'm going to say this, but what the world you want to live in is up to you to live in, right? So you have to create that space for yourself that you can live in, that feels right for you.
Well, I'm trying.
You are.
But there's also limitations.
But that's why I'm saying, that's when you were saying we're coming out of this pandemic, it's a slow, it's not like it takes a bit of time to make some big structural changes, even if it's just personally.
Yeah.
So
I think it's,
So it's complicated.
It is complicated.
It's not a stop on a dime and I'm going to pivot and I'm going to just make this big change, which sometimes happens, but most of the time it's thought out and you have to like plan for financially, and it takes time to, there's all these other pillars that have to kind of get set up in the foundation of a change before you can just change.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So
I guess I was just hoping that like with the pandemic and everybody being kind of more or less forced to be on equal plane of experience in terms of daily life, except for essential workers, obviously, I was hoping that big companies and institutions and policymakers and like stakeholders who are making these key decisions would actually like allow the grocery stores to close on a holiday so that everybody could have an actual day off. And this is a very like specifically American thing. But just thinking about like Labor Day, like there's tons of businesses that are going to be open on Labor Day. Your local coffee shop's going to be open. Your local grocery store's going to be open because all those people are not getting a day off.
Right.
Right. And like that feels really sad to me. That even if they had the day off, they would probably want to work because they don't want to lose a day of income. Money.
Yeah.
Right. So there's just lots of issues.
Lots of things
that I really care about, and I want them all to be fixed. And I have very little power to fix them. Yeah. So anyway. But yeah, that's kind of like on the forefront of my mind. There's also a lot of chat. Maybe it's because of how the algorithm has algorithmed me, but on Threads, I see a lot of conversation around like the cost of living and affordability crisis in Los Angeles. And a lot of people are talking about how like now in most major cities, the basic income you need to live quote unquote comfortably is somewhere around $100,000. And then people start chiming in like, what about all the service workers and the people who are making like $30,000 a year who still live in these cities, right? They're budgeting, they're making it work. And I'm like, yes, they're making it work, but they're not creating any kind of stability for themselves. Like there's a minimum level of like comfortability and stability that comes at a certain income threshold where you can not just pay all of your monthly bills, but also save and potentially invest or go on a trip or whatever. Right. And that's just like not available to so many people. And it breaks my heart. Yeah. So
I agree.
This is our bi-weekly Jackie's stomping on capitalism rant.
Jackie, the weekly, do you need to move to Copenhagen solution? Like you need to live in a socialist country.
I do.
Yeah.
So if there are any single Danes out there, not too picky.
Right? We need she has a bicycle. So
I do.
With a cart. All right. My God. So
wait, but
yes,
the survivability of this era that we're in for me is also coming back to my little mantra, right? The universal mother's taking care of me. Like,
yeah.
Just
and does that feel more relevant? I mean, than a year ago?
Feels the same amount. It was, helpful and relevant then too.
Right. You feel like you have a deeper connection now than you did then?
No, for me, the connection has always been deep. The challenge for me is the remembering of it.
Bing, 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 bing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why whenever I'd call my sponsor, Claire, she'd be like, just stop it. And when's the last time you worked on step 3, which was the step where you're bringing in, your
higher power, something bigger.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would be like, oh, well, that's nowhere to be found ever.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So she'd give me a 30-day assignment to reconnect. And then, what do you know? Things got better. It was kind of like, oh, okay.
How about that? Yeah.
Yeah. So what's going on now? What's going on now is, at least for me, September 2nd, 2010 is when my brother died, your uncle, and I always forget that it's coming up, but my body remembers. And so I get very melancholy in the latter part of August, and I never connect it to him until we're right about here. I'm like, oh, that's why I'm like sad, or things feel out of sorts, or we're not like, I'm just not feeling my usual jubilant self, And so I think that it's interesting because, especially, I mean, I was sober when he died, but it was like when I was drinking and using, I would have things feel a certain way, and I wouldn't know if it was from this week or last week or 3 months ago, or you'd get angry about something that had nothing to do with what was going on. So I think
it would catch up to you.
Yeah. And so I think this is like an annual thing where but it's familial. So my mom gets sad, my dad gets sad. I try and give them a little more love, like we're all gonna go out to dinner tonight, I feel like it's hard. It's not as hard as it was, but I still miss him. Yeah. So, yeah.
Of course.
Sad.
It's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I don't miss all the kind of some of the stuff that came along with him. It was challenging and, disruptive and dysfunctional, but I do miss him, and those things where it's a joke that he and I get, right? There's jokes that you and Livy probably have, usually around probably Dad and I, that only you two know. Right? Or little sayings, or little songs, or little, there's like those core little memories. Yeah, those little familial things that come up, and you're like, oh yeah. I saw this thing, oh my God, I saw this, I forget what came up, but it was something called Jaya, which when I was a kid, my mom was in this art collective that was called Jaya. And there was a song, and my brother and I would always fucking make fun of this song. So I looked for it on Apple, and I kind of found a version of, because I don't know what the actual song even sounds like now, because all I have in my head is he and our version of the satire of Jaya. Just like, and this is, two kids growing up in Venice, right? Yeah. Like, but in this hippie art collective, women's art collective, on the canals, the Venice canals. I have this very visual picture of this. There was this house on the canals. This woman who was French there, she would make these big pots of ratatouille for people. And it was who even knew what ratatouille was? You know what I mean? It was just like the 70s, and we were just little kids, and it was like eggplant soup. Ugh, no, I don't want that. Eggplant stew? No. It's delicious, but not when you're not
when you're 7.
Not when you're 7.
And
you want a
you're
cheeseburger.
surrounded by a bunch of naked old ladies.
Yeah. We were not naked.
Oh.
Well, there was one nude lady. There was one lady who,
was like a nudist.
Yeah, I guess you would call her that. She would paddle around the Venice canals naked on a board, and she would go down to the beach like in a man's button down, and then take it off and get in the ocean, and then put it back on and get out. She's still around. Yeah, very. I do have a memory of her and my mom talking, and her being naked, and my brother being about this big, and him being right at pube height, and I'm like, Mom, and he's just like. I do have that memory. So yeah, there's, hippy dippy times.
Hippy dippy times.
Hippy dippy times. Just having a conversation in the garden with the naked lady. Like it's nothing. I'm just like.
I mean, in some ways it kind of is nothing. But it's so interesting because that very much conflicts with like the cultural norms that I grew up with in our family, which were definitely more like revealed skin is slutty and you shouldn't like wear revealing clothing, and dressing a certain way implies certain things about your behavior, and promiscuity is bad.
Really?
That was my wow. Yeah, that
probably
was
for
me.
Probably because I was so that way.
It wasn't just you.
Yeah.
It was like the whole thing.
Yeah.
There were comments made and things implied.
Well, I think there's always been comments made and things implied, right? Like,
No, I think that started in like the 17 and 1800s when like Puritan culture took over.
Puritan, yeah.
But that's what I mean. It's like this is exactly what I'm talking about. You're like, yeah, I feel like that's always been the norm. I'm like, it's not normal. We're just assuming that it's normal because this value has been placed on these things.
I did not say it was normal.
Okay.
It just has been what it is.
Yeah.
It's not new.
Yeah.
It's not new does not mean it's normal.
Correct.
It's been around for a very long time.
Yeah. And I feel like we're kind of clawing our way out of like respectability politics as our country has become less coupled with like the church and Christianity.
Well, our country is very new. That's what hit me when we went to Japan. I was like, oh, or even Copenhagen and Denmark, right? Like, or Norway the year before. Like, we're an early bird, I mean, we being the people who came and invaded the Native Americans here, but we haven't been here for very long in the scheme of civilizations.
Right.
So, and that's probably just coming up because I went to a museum yesterday and was in the basement with all of the Asian art. And it was like, oh, but, even that is like BC. They date everything BC. It's like, I'm sure that people in Asia didn't date it BC.
Right. Yeah. Right? Yes. Yeah. It's a very good point.
Right.
There it is. There it is.
Right. So anyway, so I bring my brother Damon up because I'm sure there's people out there who have lost somebody close to them or either literally or figuratively or just, by choice had to part ways with people. And, sometimes the kind of stressy or depressy thing shows up in a kind of event timeline that you may or may not be aware of. And I am not a person who just like marks my calendars with things, and I'm not very organized in that kind of way, so it's always a little surprising to me, like, oh, here it is again. And then I go into it and I'm okay with it, and I mean, as okay as you can be, but I think people may assume that I'm just depressed, right? And it's just me. but it's actually maybe tied to a sadness or a loss or a grief or some sort of
something that your like body remembers that you might not be conscious of.
Yeah. And so maybe want to think about, like, if you're experiencing something that comes up seasonally, kind of look at what that might be tied to and go back until you can see if there's something there, if you can even remember timelines that way.
I feel like grief is also interesting too, because it can change over time. Like when you first get thrust into it, it feels so specific, right? And there's like an intensity to it, and it's very clearly like the feeling of loss. And then as time goes by, like your reflection on the person who's gone may also change too, right?
Right.
And that can also bring up like a whole wave of guilt or whatever for even thinking those things, right? Like to be relieved that the shoe finally dropped, because now you don't have to wait for it to drop.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And I think, going to, so for anybody out there who lives in LA, or maybe they have something for you wherever you live, there's a place that helped me a lot called Our House, which is specific to grief and therapy around grief. It's so funny because one of the women reached out to me about another thing, or a real estate thing, who was in my group. And this is, 14 years ago. But because we bonded as this little group that had all lost a sibling at the same time, all varying different ways. Some were accidents, some were illness, some were self-inflicted, just all the ways that people can go. And it's interesting, like we'll always have this kind of weird bond that we went through this thing together. Yeah. And so that's what's going on with me this week. So I'm just kind of being gentle with myself this weekend. I'm like, all right, I'm not trying not to overschedule, but then it's like, hey, you want to come over for a barbecue? And I'm like, okay. Then I just got a second one, which I haven't told Jackie about yet. We'll see. Like we can say no, we can say yes, we could say that feels good, or that just feels like more work, right? So like, whatever. But whatever it is, it's like, okay, we have a long weekend, and I am gonna kind of be soft with myself around it, and I'm like, okay. So going back to saying no, I was watching this Larry David episode. And he was walking down the street and he saw this woman walking towards him. And he's like, oh, she's going to ask me to come to this dinner party. No, she's going to ask me. And I'm going to say no, because my mom died. Right. And he's like, and then they get into the thing. Can you say your mom died? Like, can you use that as, they did the Larry David thing. And she was like, come to dinner. He's like, no, I'm really not up to it. No, you should come. Like, no, I'm not up to it. No. And finally he's like, I can't. My mom died. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. And so I actually used that a few times when people were pushing me to do stuff that I didn't want to do. And I'd be like, you know what? I can't right now. My brother died. And then they'd be like, that you have to go to that space when people are asking you to do something and you say no. And then they're like, but it's really fun, or it's really delicious, or it's really blah, whatever it is they're trying to sell you on and include you in. And it's really because they really want you there. But it's like, sometimes you just don't have the capital to do it. Like I remember it was kind of bar mitzvah season for Olivia during that time. And so there were all these parties and things to go to. And I was just like, I could barely get there or even, go to your volleyball games. And I just didn't have it in me to make small talk with people. I was like, how can I talk to you about like whatever it is, your new shoes when my brother just died? Like I just don't have it. Right. And so I didn't use them as an excuse, but I definitely did as it progressed and I was kind of coming out of it and people were pushing me to do things that I didn't want to do. And I would be like, sorry, I can't, my brother died, which sounds awful, but also I just didn't want to do it. And it stops people from doing whatever. So sometimes no just means no. And like, even though I was taught that when I was newly sober, they said, no is a sentence. Like, you don't have to explain. You don't have to like justify. Just no can mean no. But there's so many people who won't take no for an answer that sometimes you have to push it a little bit. So just sometimes I can get a little, I don't even know what you call that. Is it modeling? What's the word for that? Brusque? I get a little Larry David is what I get. So where were we? We had to take a little pause because our camera got a little hot. Yeah. Coming in hot. Too hot. So that's where I'm at. We didn't really talk about where you're at. This coming out of August, but not quite. Yeah. 1 day left.
Yeah. Not quite. I'm on week 4 or 5 of my meds. And it's interesting, like 2 days ago, I felt like just like a person. Like I was like, oh, I'm like just doing the things, right? And like part of that is probably also because I was picking up a espresso machine from Facebook Marketplace. That's my newest rabbit hole because I just have so much free time and things to do. Yeah.
Making special coffee.
Anyway, it's like $7 for a latte at most coffee shops. Yeah. Which is great. And I'm happy that that's paying them closer to living wage. Hopefully for the people who work there. Right. And
so this is the thing, okay? Everyone should make a living wage, but a fucking latte is $7.
Yeah, but that's not. I think what's interesting is that it's recalibrating what is like a luxury versus an everyday expense. Yeah. Right.
I like don't the good old days for coffee, really. Yeah. I don't like. I'm not one of those daily. I never was. Yeah. A Starbucksy.
No, it's just like occasional. Yeah. But that's what's so interesting is like, the good old days were not actually that good. Like things weren't good. Things weren't affordable because it was the good old days. Things were affordable because people were getting exploited all up and down the supply chain.
But things were still not affordable a lot of the time for the middle class. Like it's not the good old days are not.
Well, we're hearing about it now because it's finally starting to affect people in like the higher socioeconomic levels. Right. And it's gotten even worse for everybody lower on the pole.
Right. So how do we get back to our socialized thing when we were talking about coffee?
I mean, I'm not getting coffee. Right?
Right.
It's just not as frequent as it used to be.
Got it.
Right? It's like once or twice a month.
And so, but I want to go back to 2 days ago, you felt like a human just doing things.
Yes. Like I could just do things.
Yes.
But this is what I don't understand. Like this is
incredible.
It is. And also like, that's why I get frustrated when I'm in that kind of funk when you're like, just do it. Like, just do contrary action. I've been trying to do fucking contrary action for months.
Right. Which is why I kept saying, maybe it's not just that. Maybe there is medication needed to like switch up the baseline. Yeah. Maybe baseline is not where we need to be operating from.
Yeah. But it's also, up until a couple of days ago, though, it was weird. I felt weird. Yeah. In ways that I couldn't fully articulate. Like I would get headaches or I had like a couple dizzy spells that were a little concerning when I upped my dosage to like the full dosage that I should be taking. And the meds that I'm on are also like stimulating. So I think I'm losing weight unintentionally because I don't have like the same hunger cues. I'm not really responding to or like checking, and I wasn't really a big breakfast eater to begin with, but I noticed that if I take the meds and I don't make like at least a protein smoothie in the morning, then I'm like feeling wonky. right? So I'm also having to...
But you learned that early on with his meds, like, I'm out of sorts. So
but it still requires an adjustment and a recalibration of my full routine.
Right.
Right? And I don't do well with routine changes. Also, this whole time, I'm like sitting there, you know, thinking of writing down notes and thinking of things to talk to my doctor about. And I'm kind of like, hey doc, is there any chance I'm like on the autism spectrum with these very specific things that bother me? I'm like, I'm very literal in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to rules. Anyway.
I think we all have that. I did that the other day. I was like, do you think I have autism because I don't like tags touching my neck? Not all tags, but I don't like certain
okay, so
tactile things bother me.
This is where the call comes from inside the house, Mom. It's usually genetic, and usually people explain it away. Like people, even with medical symptoms, people are like, oh yeah, you know, my hands get numb if I try to read a book for longer than 15 minutes. And then someone's like, oh yeah, that used to happen to your Aunt Sally all the time. It's just something that's in the family. And like, that's not normal, right?
Well, my hands don't get numb, but
mine do.
But I also don't read books. I listen. So there you go.
That's why I switched to listening to books, because I couldn't hold them to read anymore.
Oh.
Anyway, so I feel like I'm able to people a little bit more.
You have been peopling a lot more.
Yeah. That's the other thing. So on top of the meds, I've also been like going out once a week to
a
socialize.
Very social event.
And which is not going to be forever. It's going to end, I think, soon-ish. Yeah. But yeah, that's been good to stretch those muscles, right? And like chat with people who are strangers and, you know, just be outside. So spend a lot of time indoors. Yeah. But like this morning, again, also espresso machine does add another variable, because I woke up and I was like, I'm going to try to like make my thing. You know, like I'm going to try to figure this out this morning. But like I woke up, the alarm went off. Or no, I woke up at like 6:40 or something. I was like, I'm absolutely not waking up right now. So I forced myself back to sleep. Woke up again at like 8:30 or 7:30. Something, a more reasonable time for a Saturday long weekend. And then...
I have thoughts. Go ahead. Keep going. Like, why don't you just get up? If your body's like, it's time to get up, then you just get up.
Because I'm also still tired.
So then you take a nap. You don't gotta have anything to do today.
I have things that I want to do today, though.
Okay. All right.
Anyway. Fine. And I wasn't sure if I was gonna... Anyways.
Yes.
Variables.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the thing. I still don't want to be awake. I still don't like being awake. But it's easier for me to get out of bed.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good.
So, yeah. And there's like other stuff too. I don't know. It's hard for me to figure out what like the biggest priorities are when I feel like I have so many important things to do. Constantly. And my mind is constantly evaluating like every single option, like looking at, I read like tons of reviews on coffee machines before I like decided on this one. And then I watched like 10 YouTube videos from different people on like how to use it and how to do this and how to calibrate that. And like all of these things. I know you're looking at me like, why are you doing all that? I can't help it. My brain is like, it's like spaghetti. There's just all of these it's literally like, it's like a hiking map. You know what it is? It's like that, you know, that installation at LACMA Metropolis 2?
Yes, Metropolis.
That's literally what my brain feels like.
Look that up, LACMA Metropolis.
Yes, it's fantastic. Go see it in person if you can. And also, I saw this crazy video. It requires like 10 people to maintain it because they have to make sure there's no dust. They have to check the cars, make sure all the stuff is aligned. But you don't realize that if you're just like going to experience it as a visitor, right? Yeah. But it's like a very involved thing to maintain. Yeah. So, Anyways. Yeah, I also noticed that like my internal radio is quieted a little bit. It's still popping up. But this is a perfect example of things that can be normalized or not, right? Okay. It like obviously a song can get stuck in your head, right? You hear something and you're like, you keep singing it over and over for a couple hours and then it ends, right? I have this like radio I'll just be sitting there washing dishes and I'll have like a refrain, like a chorus or like 2 lines of a song just like repeating in my head. And then maybe it'll pivot to like a different song. And I told you this and you were like, really? And I was like, yeah. And I didn't even realize that wasn't normal until I said something about it.
Well, I think people hear songs and they get stuck in their head. Sometimes it's because I just saw it on Instagram.
No, I'm talking about with no context, like Hamilton will pop into my head. Or like,
yeah,
I have one in my head right now. Something lightning in a bottle.
Ago.
No.
Yes. You know what I have? I have one of my besties who keeps sending me this fucked up like private message, and it's mana mana da 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 mana mana da 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 da. It's from the Sesame Street, like from our age Sesame Street. And I'm like,
I don't recognize
girl,
that.
Stop. So now I've sent her the woman who's doing the avocado song while exercising. You can Google that too.
Okay.
So I get it. There's songs that get stuck in a loop in your head.
Yeah.
And there's songs that, like, I'll wake up, I'll get out of bed, or I might have a song in my head that's playing. And then when I backtrack, it's like, oh, that was the last song that played while I was watching my Instagram last night as a background song. So it could be.
Yeah. I'm sure if I follow
the shaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. The call is coming from inside the house, but the house is inside your phone.
Not always, though.
Okay. But what is that? I mean, so what if you're...
It's exhausting
that a song comes up in your brain?
Constantly. I feel like my brain is never quiet. Like I'm never, even when I was meditating regularly.
Okay, so maybe you need to start meditating regularly again.
Even when
let's try it now with the medicine.
Let me finish my sentence.
Okay. This is where we get mom and daughter.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Even when I was meditating, it was the same thing. Like there's so much activity happening here. And it's never quiet.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. That's why meditation is a thing. Everybody's the same way. Jay Shetty was just talking about this the other day. Mr. Calm himself. Said. No, I don't care about that. But I'm just like, he's like, you're trying to meditate and it's him flopping around on the bed. Did I do the dishes? Did I turn out the light? And there's times where
that's like the brain resisting meditation. It's different.
I don't know if I think it's just we're used to it going. So like there's times where I'm listening to the Deepak Chopra meditation and literally Deepak will do the whole prompt and get ready to give you a mantra. And I literally have no idea what he said. Like I was not there for any of it.
Yeah.
And that's just part of it. But I don't know. I don't know that that's a diagnosable thing other than...
Well, I have the diagnosis. You keep backtracking on this.
You have the diagnosis?
Yes.
What's the diagnosis?
ADHD.
You got it?
Anxiety and depression.
They said yes?
Yes. I wouldn't be on the meds I'm on now without that.
Really?
Yes.
Oh. Got it. Okay. Good. Wait. I have to just back up now. So what am I trying to say? So they did say you have, where does the HD part? What is the HD part of ADHD?
The hyperactivity.
Uh-huh. And what's
attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder.
Attention deficit.
Uh-huh.
Got it.
Uh-huh. And there's a lot of misconceptions around it. There's a lot of like assumptions that it can only look a certain way, right? Like typically, especially little boys can get overdiagnosed or medicated at a young age because it's very obvious, right? I think that's more of like a method of controlling them into something that's more easily
Submission.
handleable. Yeah, handleable, manageable for everybody else. But there's a lot of there's a range of spectrums and symptoms
Right.
that haven't been given a lot of attention up until now. Like this.
Oh.
That's like that's not like me bouncing out of my chair, but that's a hyperactive stim. Yeah.
You mean like this pop socket that I play with on the back of my phone?
Like this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or how we're always clicking pens.
Yeah.
People are not always clicking pens.
No? The call's coming from inside the house.
Yeah, because they want to ask you about your extended warranty.
This cultural reference is not going to work in 10 years, but that's good.
It's fine. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, to me, you seem a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
A little bit more able.
Yeah. I'm not ruminating as much, but there's still things setting me off and sending me down the spiral, right? I found out one of my bills is really increasing, one of my utility bills, and I don't know how I'm going to handle that, right? I can make it work this year, but I can't see how it would be sustainable in the long term. So now I have to go deal with that. But the steps of dealing with that are so intimidating and overwhelming. And also, yeah, it feels like a lot. It's like another big thing added to the pile.
Yeah. Right now, you're taking your medication. Things are changing. August is over. All of this very, very busy time is past, at least my work, home life situation. And we're going into fall. And we'll see where we go. And you're here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Better.
And
thank you.
Now we're gonna stop this recording because our fucking camera's hot and we have to go.
Bye. We want to hear from you.
Find us on Instagram and TikTok at 12 Steps for Everyone. That's at the number 12 Steps for Everyone.
Please like and follow us. You can also send us topics you want us to dig into or follow-up questions from each episode.
And if you know someone who would enjoy or benefit from our conversations, please feel free to share this with them. All are welcome here.